What's up guys? So today we are reviewing the first 3 episodes of The Boys Season 3. Easily the most diabolical show on television, and Season 3 continues to prove that.
Daddy's home.
Within the first 10 minutes of Season 3 Episode 1, I was like, what in God's name am I watching? And that just continues throughout. What I love about The Boys and what I've always loved about The Boys is just how refreshing it is. It feels like such an antidote to the kind of superhero cinematic universes we have out there, and stands absolutely alone in just doing its own thing unapologetically and delivering such an interesting and complex look on the real world applications of superheroes and how they'd be utilised by countries and corporations. And that continues to be the strongest aspect of the show. Everything that happens, within and behind the scenes of Vought, I just find so engaging, from the media use of the characters to the fake symbolism and merchandising of their abilities. I think it's so well done. I think Anthony Starr's Homelander is such an underrated performance. I would genuinely put him up there with Bryan Cranston's Walter White. He owns this character, and every time he's on screen, I'm just glued to what he's going to do next. He's so unpredictable.
I mean, they fucking love me.
I think Season 3 sets up a really promising kind of arc for the future of the series. They can find a weapon that kills Supes, the ability for our heroes to become Supes themselves temporarily, to combat them. And I think the best scene for me in these first 3 episodes was a very straightforward dialogue scene between Butcher and Homelander when Homelander goes to visit him, because there's such an interesting character dynamic here. These two people who feel so alienated and disconnected from the worlds that they exist in, ultimately finding common ground through their mutual hatred and loneliness. There's just something really engaging about that they're essentially two sides of the same coin. For me, I think the biggest flaw of The Boys is that the action isn't particularly memorable. There's always a lot of creative sequences, but at times the action just doesn't feel like it's very well staged or choreographed. I assume a lot of that is budget and the kind of time it would take to choreograph these big sequences with superpowers. But off the top of my head, I can't really think of any kind of like gripping action sequence that I would go back and rewatch from this show. The level of violence is there, the creativity with that violence is there. We haven't really seen two Supes face off in a kind of extended and satisfying way. The kind of girl team up at the end of Season 2 was great, but it felt a bit like playground bullies just teaming up on the one nerdy kid. It was just punching, there wasn't a lot of kind of choreography or technicality to it. So I think for me that's the one area that The Boys could do with some improvement on.
I won't love it, I never love it. Never fucking love it.
But I find all the political intrigue and ambiguity really interesting, because all the corruption, all the conspiracy, it plays out like it probably does in real life. Occasionally the show focuses a bit too heavily on subplots that don't really keep your attention that well, but the show has a lot of characters to check in on. So it makes sense that some storylines just aren't going to be as engrossing as others. I think Starlight is getting a really good arc so far this season, and it promises to only kind of get tougher for her, but hopefully she'll come out of it the victor. The Deep is a weird character, I think he's probably got some of the weirdest scenes in the show, some of the most like what have I just watched scenes in the show, and he always feels slightly detached from the main narrative. And I think that's partly because of his character's incompetence, his naivety, his need for validation and approval and to be steered in the right direction. And I now also feel quite worried for him being welcomed back into the Seven under Homelander's grip again. Maeve is the one character who is noticeably absent. She did have that one scene in the first episode, but she hasn't really been welcomed back properly this season yet. But she was a character who I thought had a great arc in Season 2, and I'm really excited to see how her character is utilised going forward. I just hope we do get to see that. The season is very much kind of finding its footing and starting to take shape leading forward. But again, there's just no show like it on television. There's no media that deals with superheroes in the way that The Boys does, and I absolutely love it for that. And for just owning its own voice so memorably. Finding those moments of laugh out loud kind of comedy in the most horrific of situations, normally at Huey's expense, and stopping the show from just being purely dark with those moments of hope and promise. I think the show does that really well, and I think maintaining that tone is the show's biggest asset. But let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, that is always a huge help. Thank you for watching guys, and we'll hopefully see you next time.